August 19th, 2023, 3:28 in the afternoon, a small chapel in Richmond's Church Hill district. White roses line every pew. The air smells like lavender and hope. Guests sit in pastel dresses and summer suits, smiling, whispering, waiting. At the front, Patricia Blake stands in a flowing ivory gown, veil pulled back, face glowing. Her hand rests in John Mitchell's, his grip firm, his eyes wet with emotion. Officiant, warm ceremonial. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Heavy wooden doors slam open. Music stops. Heads turn. A man stands in the entrance. 50 years old. Dark button-up shirt. Hands at his sides. Face. Calm. Too calm. His name is Paul Reid. Paul takes 3 steps forward. His shoes echo on the tile floor. Patricia. Breath catching. Paul. Voice low. Steady. You both used me. John steps forward. Hands raised. John, urgent. Bro, let's talk outside. Paul, don't call me that. Paul reaches into his jacket, pulls out a gun. 3 shots. Bang. John's chest. He stumbles backward. Bang. Patricia's abdomen. She crumples, bouquet scattering. Bang. The bullet embeds in the wooden cross behind the altar. Screaming. Chaos. People diving under pews. Paul doesn't run. He places the gun on the floor, carefully, like setting down car keys. His hands rise, palms open. He looks at Patricia, still breathing, gasping, staring up at him. Paul, quietly, now you'll remember me. Paul Reid had no criminal record, no history of violence, no red flags. He was a good man, the kind who showed up, who gave everything, who believed love was supposed to cost something. But to understand how a man like that ends up here, standing in a chapel with blood on his hands, we have to go back, not days, not months, but to the moment Paul Reid learned what it meant to be invisible. Because here's what nobody tells you about invisible men. When they finally appear, the world isn't ready for what they've become. So the question is, how much can a good person endure before goodness itself becomes the problem? Welcome to Compass True Crime Stories. Kindly support and encourage us by subscribing to this channel as we continue to keep you entertained with new true crime stories around the world on a daily basis. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next interesting and chilling true crime story. Richmond, Virginia, March 12, 1973. Paul Reid was born into a life that taught him early. Love isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, proven through action. His mother left when he was 3. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. His father, Gerald Reid, worked double shifts at a shipping warehouse, hands rough, eyes tired, but present every single day. Gerald's. Love is what you do when nobody's watching. Paul believed that. He believed kindness mattered, that showing up counted, that doing right by people would bring right back to him. Paul inherited his father's frame, broad shoulders, thick arms, the kind of body people called big, but never intimidating. Society had a word for men like him: safe. Safe to talk to, safe to cry on, safe to depend on, but never safe to choose. In high school, girls came to him with problems, breakups, bad grades, family drama. He listened, he cared, he showed up. And when they felt better, they left for someone else. Paul learned young, he was the friend, never the choice. Fall of 1994, Virginia Commonwealth University. Paul majored in computer science. And then he met Jessica Torres. She was everything he thought he'd never have. Sharp, funny, present. They met at a campus tech workshop, started studying together at the library. Late-night conversations about music, about dreams, about futures that felt possible. For 6 months, Paul thought he'd finally found it. Someone who saw him. But then the shift started. Jessica would text him at 2 a.m. I'm so stressed. Can we talk? He'd answer every time. But Saturday nights? Sorry, I'm busy. He was her emotional support, never her public choice. One evening in March 1995, Paul finally asked the question he'd been avoiding. Paul, Jessica, are we building something, or am I just convenient? She looked at him for a long time, and then she said the words that would follow him for the next 28 years. Jessica, you're really sweet, Paul, but I need someone who makes me feel something more. That night, Paul sat in his father's kitchen, said nothing for 20 minutes. Gerald, son, the right woman won't make you beg to be seen. Paul wanted to believe that, but deep down, a question had already planted itself. What if nobody's coming at all? 1995 became 2000. 2000 became 2010. 2010 became 2020. Paul built a quiet life. He worked as an IT systems coordinator, bought a small condo in Church Hill in 2008, maxed out his 401k every year, attended New Hope Community Church every Sunday. He dated, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, but the pattern never changed. Women loved his stability until they met someone exciting. He was the good guy they left for the bad boy, the safe option they outgrew, the backup plan they never called. By 45, Paul stopped trying, not because he gave up on love, but because he was tired of proving his worth to people who'd already decided he didn't have any. He wasn't depressed. He was resigned. Late at night, he'd scroll through photos of exes getting married. Women who once said, "You're such a good guy," now holding hands with men who weren't. And Paul would sit in the dark and wonder, is there something broken in me that only I can see? His best friend John would tell him, "Your person is coming, bro. Just wait." And Paul would smile, because John believed it. But Paul, he'd stopped believing years ago. Paul Reid spent 47 years being overlooked, dismissed, erased. He gave everything to people who gave nothing back. He believed kindness would be rewarded, that loyalty would be returned, that love, real love, would finally see him. But love doesn't always arrive the way we pray for it. Sometimes it comes wrapped in hope, and sometimes it comes dressed as the person who destroys you. The question is, if you've been invisible your whole life, how far would you go to finally be remembered? Before Patricia, before the chapel, before the blood. There was John. They met in 1980, 7 years old, 4 houses apart in Southside Richmond. John Mitchell was everything Paul wasn't: charismatic, athletic, the kid everyone wanted to be around. Paul was quiet, thoughtful, the kid everyone overlooked. But they fit. In 6th grade, when kids made fun of Paul's weight, John shut it down, stood between them. "Say it again, I dare you." They didn't. And when John nearly failed Algebra 2 in high school, Paul tutored him every day for 3 months. The friendship never wavered. Weekly basketball games, late-night talks about life, faith, failure. When John married Keisha in 2005, Paul was his best man. When they divorced in 2012, Paul drove John home from the courthouse, sat with him in silence for 2 hours. Gerald had a stroke. Paul got the call at 1:47 a.m. By 2:00 a.m., John was at his door, keys in hand, engine running. He didn't ask questions. He just drove. They had one rule, never spoken, never written, just understood. Bros before everybody else. If one called, the other answered. If one needed money, the other gave it. No questions, no conditions. John was the one person Paul never doubted. October 12th, 2021, Tuesday evening. Paul's phone rings. "John, yo, game night at my coworker's spot Friday. You should come." Paul almost says no. Work had been brutal. He was tired. "John, come on, bro. When's the last time you had fun?" Paul, "All right, fine. Text me the address." John's text, "He's coming." Response from P, "Perfect." John knew everything about Paul. Every rejection, every disappointment, every woman who walked away. Paul told John things he never told Gerald, because Gerald was his father. But John was his brother. John knew Paul believed in love deeply, desperately, without question, and John knew something else too. Paul would give everything for the right person, even if that person was the wrong one. Here's what people don't talk about when they talk about betrayal. It doesn't start with malice, it starts with opportunity. John didn't wake up one day and decide to destroy his best friend. He just met someone. Someone who laughed at his jokes. Someone who texted him first. Someone who made him feel alive. And when that someone mentioned she was tired of being alone, John thought of Paul, because that's what good friends do, right? They introduce people. They create opportunities. They help. But here's the thing about introductions. Sometimes you're not connecting two people. You're handing someone a loaded gun and hoping they don't pull the trigger. John Mitchell loved Paul Reid. That part was true. But love doesn't protect you from selfishness. It just makes the betrayal hurt more. So the question becomes, when did John stop being Paul's brother and start being something else? Was it the moment he met Patricia, or was it the moment he realized Paul would never see it coming? October 15th, 2021. Friday night. Paul Reid walked into a house he'd never been to and met the woman who would ruin his life. The place smelled like pumpkin candles and pepperoni. 15 people. Dominoes on the coffee table. Wine glasses. Easy laughter. Paul walked in behind John, scanned the room, and then he saw her, Patricia Blake, 37, supply chain manager at a logistics company. She wasn't the loudest person there, wasn't performing for attention. She was just present. When someone told a joke, she laughed after everyone else, like she actually processed it. Paul noticed that. John, Patricia, this is Paul. The guy I told you beats me at chess every time. Patricia extended her hand. So you're the one who taught him humility? Paul laughed, a real laugh, not the polite kind. They play trivia, sitting close, whispering answers. They got paired on the same team by chance. Patricia leaned in when she had an answer, whispered it like they were co-conspirators. When they won, she high-fived him. Genuine, excited. Patricia, we make a good team. Paul felt something he hadn't felt in years. Chosen. Saturday morning. Paul woke up to a text from a number he didn't recognize. Hey, Paul, still undefeated at trivia? Patricia? He stared at it for a full minute. She texted first. Women didn't text Paul first. They texted for days. Light at first. Favorite shows, worst jobs, childhood stories, then deeper. She told him about her father. Passed when she was 19, heart failure. He told her about his mother, left when he was 3, never looked back. Patricia, we turned out okay though, didn't we? Paul, yeah, I think we did. December 3rd, lunch at Pearly's Deli. They talked for 4 hours straight. She ordered brisket, he got pastrami. They split a slice of chocolate cake. At one point, Patricia put her fork down, looked at him. You don't try to impress me, I like that. Paul, I wouldn't know how to be anyone else. Patricia, good. Don't. When the waiter told them they were closing, Paul checked his watch. 4:47 p.m. They'd been there since 1. Patricia, I want to do this again. A lot. Paul drove home that night replaying every word, every smile, every moment she looked at him like he mattered. By January 2022, they were inseparable. She met Gerald. He looked at Paul later and said, Gerald, that one sees you, son. Paul introduced her to John. John texted him that night. She's solid, bro. Don't mess this up. They spent weekends hiking Pocahontas State Park. She tried cooking for him once. Burned everything. They laughed and ordered Chinese food. He fixed her laptop when it crashed the night before a big presentation. She bought him a coffee mug that said, World's okayest boyfriend. He kept it on his desk at work. Late February, Patricia asked to talk. Her face was serious. Patricia, I need to tell you something. I have a heart condition, dilated cardiomyopathy, she explained. Her heart didn't pump efficiently. She took medication daily, had been managing it for 6 years. Most guys ran when they heard this. Paul didn't flinch. What do you need from me? Patricia's eyes filled. Most guys don't even ask that. I'm not most guys. She kissed him, and for the first time in 50 years, Paul Reid felt chosen, not tolerated, not settled for. Chosen, March 2022. Paul started thinking long-term, not just months, years, marriage, a shared life, growing old beside someone who actually wanted him there. One night, lying on his couch watching a documentary, Patricia said something that made him believe it was real. "I feel like I've been waiting for you without knowing it." Paul kissed her forehead and thought, this is it. This is the life I was supposed to have. But life has a way of testing belief. Just when you think you found solid ground, the floor drops out. March 28th, Monday night. They were watching a movie. Patricia laughed at a scene. And then Patricia's hand goes to her chest. Her breathing changes. Paul, her hand clutched her chest. Her breath came in short, shallow pulls. Her eyes went distant. Paul. Patricia? Patricia, talk to me. Paul called 911, voice steady, hands shaking. Paramedics arrived in 6 minutes. Felt like 6 hours. Richmond Medical Center. Fluorescent lights. Smell of antiseptic. Doctors stabilized her. Ran tests. Paul sat in the waiting room, praying to a God he wasn't sure was listening. Love feels different when you waited your whole life for it. It feels sacred, permanent, unbreakable. But here's the thing about unbreakable love. Sometimes it's not love that breaks, it's you. So the question Paul never asked himself was this: if someone finally chooses you after 50 years of being invisible, what would you sacrifice to keep them? March 29th, 2022. 7:14 a.m. Paul hadn't slept. Dr. Lisa Jin walked in at 7:30. Cardiologist, 20 years experience. The kind of doctor who doesn't waste time on false hope. Dr. Jin, Patricia's heart function has declined significantly. Her ejection fraction is at 22%. Normal is 50 to 70. Medication isn't enough anymore. She needs surgery, a left ventricular assist device. Without it, her heart could fail within months. Paul gripping Patricia's hand. When? Dr. Jin. As soon as possible. Patricia stares at the ceiling. Tears slide down her cheeks. Paul squeezed her hand tighter. We'll figure this out. 2 days later, the financial coordinator came in. With insurance, your out-of-pocket cost is $72,000. $72,000. Patricia's savings, $8,000. Her family estranged. Mother remarried. Father dead. No siblings, no safety net. Patricia. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have anyone. Paul didn't hesitate. You have me. Patricia. Paul, you can't. Paul. I can, and I will. Gerald found Paul in the hallway an hour later. Son, you've known this woman 5 months. 5. Paul. She'll die without this surgery. Gerald. And what happens to you if you give everything and she walks away? Paul. Then at least I'll know I tried. Gerald looked at his son, saw the determination in his eyes, and knew he'd already lost the argument. That night, Paul called John. Bro, if you love her, you got to do it. I got your back no matter what. Paul felt relief, but there was something in John's tone, something too smooth, too rehearsed. Paul ignored it. Over the next 3 weeks, Paul dismantled his life, step by step. First, his condo in Church Hill, bought in 2008 for $140,000, sold in April 2022 for $195,000. Second, his 401k. He cashed out 60%, lost $18,000 in penalties and taxes, 14 years of contributions, gone. Third, a personal loan, $25,000. Gerald co-signed. If Paul defaulted, Gerald's retirement disappeared. Total raised $74,500. Enough to cover the surgery? Barely. People asked questions. Friends from church. Are you sure about this? Co-workers. Man, you just met her. Paul's answer never changed. Love isn't about timelines. It's about showing up. He believed it, with everything in him. April 22nd, 6:15 in the morning. Patricia lay on a gurney, hospital gown, hair pulled back, face pale. Paul walked beside her as far as they'd let him, their hands, fingers intertwined. Patricia. I don't deserve you. Paul. You don't have to deserve love. You just have to accept it. The doors closed. Paul stood there for a long time, then walked to the waiting room. Surgery lasted 7 hours. Paul paced, prayed, called Gerald, called John. John showed up an hour in. You good, bro? Paul, I will be when she wakes up. John sat in the corner, scrolled his phone, texted someone. Paul didn't notice. 1:40 p.m. Dr. Jin walked out, pulled her mask down. The procedure was successful. Paul closed his eyes, exhaled all the fear he'd been holding in his chest. Patricia woke 2 hours later, groggy, weak, but breathing. She saw Paul sitting beside her bed. Patricia, you stayed. Paul, where else would I be? Paul wiped the tear away, and in that moment, he believed he'd saved her life. He believed they'd survived the worst. He believed love had won. But survival doesn't always mean gratitude. Sometimes it just means opportunity. Recovery was brutal. Patricia couldn't walk far, couldn't lift anything, needed help bathing. Paul took 2 weeks off work, helped her shower, brushed her hair, fed her small portions. Nurses recognized him at every shift change. Nurse, you're here more than most spouses I've seen. Paul, she needs me. He rearranged his work schedule, drove across the city twice a day, slept in hospital chairs just to be close. He believed this was the moment love was built for. Not the easy days, the hard ones. Week 3, Patricia's texts got shorter. Thanks for dinner instead of you're amazing. Calls got briefer. When Paul visited, she was on her phone more. Distant. Paul, everything okay? Patricia, yeah, just tired. Recovery's hard. Paul believed her, because he wanted to. Text from Jay. You up? Patricia's reply. Always for you. Paul had given everything. His savings, his future, his peace. He believed sacrifice proved love. But here's what nobody told him. Sometimes the person you save doesn't want to be saved by you. They just want to be saved. So the question is, when does devotion become delusion? And when you realize the person you saved is slipping away, do you hold tighter or do you let go? May became June. June became July. And somewhere between recovery and routine, Patricia stopped pretending. Late May. Paul would call. She wouldn't answer for hours. Sorry, phone was on silent. Date nights got canceled. I'm exhausted. When he visited, she was always heading out. Paul, did I do something wrong? Patricia, why do you always need reassurance? I'm here, aren't I? Paul backed off, confused, hurt. But he told himself she was just processing. Gerald noticed first. Son, that woman is pulling away. Paul, she almost died, Dad. She's just adjusting. Gerald, time shouldn't take you apart. It should bring you closer. Paul heard the words, but his heart wasn't ready to absorb them. John started coming around more. Just checking on you, bro. You seem stressed. Paul appreciated it. Until he started noticing things. John, how's Patricia doing? She back to normal yet? Paul answered without thinking, but something felt off. John would text during their hangouts, smiling at his screen. Once Paul caught a preview notification. See you soon. Paul, you seeing someone? John, nah, man, just work stuff. The answer came too fast. July 21st. Paul came home from work, exhausted, drained. And there it was, an envelope, cream-colored, heavy paper, gold lettering, Mr. Paul Reid. He picked it up, probably a church fundraiser, maybe a graduation. He opened it without thinking. Inside was a wedding invitation, embossed, elegant. His brain took 3 full seconds to process the names, Patricia Blake and John Mitchell. August 19th, 2022. New Hope Community Church. The room tilted. Paul read it again, and again. And again. His legs gave out. He sat on the floor, invitation in his lap. He called Patricia, voicemail. He called John, no answer. Paul's text, we need to talk now. 2 hours later, she replied. Patricia's text, I know you got the invitation. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Paul called again. This time she answered. Her voice was calm, clinical. Paul, how long? Patricia, since late April. April. While Paul was taking care of her, while he was helping her walk, feeding her, bathing her. Paul, I gave you everything. Patricia, I didn't ask you to. The line went dead. Paul drove to John's apartment, hands shaking, vision blurred. John opened the door, saw Paul's face, and knew. Paul, tell me it's not true. John, bro, I didn't plan this. It just happened. Paul, I saved her life. You knew what I gave up. John, and that's the problem, man. You made her feel like she owed you. I made her feel free. The words hit like bullets. Paul, I trusted you. My whole life I trusted you. John, I know, and I'm sorry, but I love her. Paul looked at the man he called brother. 43 years of friendship, gone in a sentence. Paul turning, walking away, John calling after him. Paul, wait. Paul didn't look back. Gerald, what happened? Paul handing Gerald the invitation. Gerald read it. His jaw tightened. Oh, son. Paul finally broke. 50 years of being overlooked, dismissed, used. 50 years of being the good guy who finished last. And now this, the ultimate betrayal. He sobbed in his father's arms like he was 7 years old again. Gerald held him, said nothing, because there were no words for this. The next day, Patricia posted a photo of her hand, engagement ring, caption, found my forever. Comments flooded in. OMG, congrats. You two are perfect, Paul scrolled. Photo after photo. Patricia and John at a restaurant, laughing. Patricia and John hiking, places she and Paul used to go. A selfie of them kissing. Caption, he makes me feel alive. Paul stared, couldn't look away. Every smile felt like another blow. While he was helping her recover, they were building a life. While he was paying her medical bills, they were falling in love. While he was believing in forever, they were planning his replacement. Paul sat in the dark that night and asked himself the question that breaks people. Was I ever real to them, or was I just useful? Betrayal doesn't announce itself with villains and evil plans. It walks in through the front door, wearing the face of someone you love. It sits beside you. It holds your hand. It thanks you for everything. And then it leaves with the person you trusted most. So here's the question that haunts every person who's been broken this way. Is it worse to be betrayed by the person you loved, or the person who promised they'd never let you fall? And the question Paul couldn't stop asking himself, if love can do this, what's the point of being good? July 22nd through August 18th, 28 days. Paul Reid stopped existing. He didn't go to work, called in sick the first week, stopped calling after that. His boss left messages. Paul, we're worried. Call us back. He didn't. He stopped answering calls, except Gerald's. Even then, he barely spoke. He stopped going to church. People noticed, texted him. We miss you. Praying for you. He read them, never replied. He spent hours scrolling through old photos. Him and Patricia at Pocahontas Park. Her laughing at something he said, her head on his shoulder. He reread John's text. You're my brother for life, bro. Sent 3 weeks before John proposed to Patricia. The cruelty wasn't just the betrayal, it was the erasure. They didn't just leave him. They rewrote the story like he never mattered. Gerald came every day. Brought food Paul wouldn't eat. Cleaned dishes Paul didn't use. Sat in silence because words felt useless. Gerald, you're allowed to be angry, Paul. I don't feel angry. I feel gone. Gerald, you're not gone, son. You're hurt. There's a difference. Paul didn't respond because hurt people can heal, and Paul didn't think he could. August 1st, the bills started arriving. Personal loan, first payment due, $840 per month for the next 3 years. Gerald co-signed. If Paul defaulted, Gerald's retirement vanished. Medical bills Patricia never finished paying. Forwarded to Paul. Because his name was on the payment plan, his 401k was gutted. Savings drained, condo sold. He was financially destroyed. And the woman he destroyed himself for? Planning a wedding, August 3rd, Gerald scheduled a therapy appointment, drove Paul there himself. Dr. Phillips, Paul, what brings you here today? Paul, I gave everything to someone who gave me nothing back. Dr. Phillips, tell me about that. Paul tried. started talking, got halfway through, and stopped. Paul, this won't fix anything. Dr. Phillips, maybe not, but it might help you survive it. Paul, I'm not sure I want to survive this. Dr. Phillips, Paul, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Long pause, too long. Paul, no, not myself. The room went silent. Dr. Phillips made a note. Gerald drove Paul home without speaking. August 19th, circled in red. Paul stared at it every day, counted down. He started researching. Google searches. How long does it take to plan a wedding? Can you stop a wedding? How do you make someone remember you? August 14th. Gerald found the laptop, saw the search history, confronted Paul. What are you planning? Paul, I'm going to make sure they never forget me. Gerald, son, don't do this, please. Paul, they erased me like I never existed. I'm just making sure that doesn't happen. Paul owned a firearm, bought it in 2015 after a break-in, registered, legal, locked in a safe for 7 years. August 18th, he opened the safe, took out the gun, checked the magazine, loaded it. He placed it in a bag. No rage, no tears, just decision. August 18th, 11:47 p.m. Paul sat in the dark, hands folded, breathing steady. Gerald called. Paul let it ring. He wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns hot, loud. This was something else, quiet, cold, final. August 19th, 5:47 a.m. Paul woke up, hadn't slept, but didn't feel tired. He showered, shaved, dressed in a dark button-up and slacks, looked in the mirror. 50 years old, eyes hollow, face calm. He didn't leave a note, didn't text Gerald, didn't say goodbye, just silence. He picked up the bag, walked to the door, and left. Stop for a second. If this story is making you feel something, anger, sadness, recognition, don't keep it to yourself. Someone in your life needs to hear this. Someone is giving too much right now. Someone is ignoring the warnings. Share this video, not for me, for them, because the next part is where everything Paul believed gets ripped apart. And the people who need to see that most, they're the ones who'll never search for it themselves. Paul Reid spent 50 years being invisible, overlooked, dismissed, erased. He gave everything to people who gave nothing back. He believed kindness would be rewarded, that loyalty would be returned. That love, real love, would finally see him. But here's what nobody told him about invisible men. When they finally appear, the world isn't ready for what they've become. So the question is, when a good man breaks, who's really to blame? Him or the people who broke him? August 19th, 2023, 2:45 in the afternoon, New Hope Community Church, Church Hill, Richmond. White roses lined every pew. The air smelled like lavender and hope. A string quartet played softly. Guests arrived in pastels and summer suits, smiling, laughing, taking photos. Nobody sensed anything wrong. Why would they? John stood at the altar, gray suit, hands clasped, fidgeting slightly, the kind of nervous grooms get. His best man patted his shoulder. You ready? John nodded. More than anything. In the bride's room, Patricia adjusted her veil. Friends fussed over her hair. Someone said, "You look perfect." Patricia smiled, checked her reflection one last time. 3:26 p.m. Paul pulled into the parking lot, engine off. Silence. He sat there for 2 minutes, staring at the building, breathing slow, hands steady. He reached for the bag, unzipped it. The gun was there, cold, heavy, real. He got out, closed the door quietly, walked toward the entrance. No rush, no hesitation, just movement. Inside, the ceremony had just started. Officiant. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of... The doors slammed open. The music stopped. Heads turned. Paul stood in the entrance. 50 years old, dark shirt, gun at his side, face empty. Gas rippled through the room. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Paul took 3 steps forward. His shoes echoed on the tile. Every sound too loud in the silence. Patricia seeing him, face draining of color. Paul? Paul raising his voice, not yelling, just clear. You both used me. His voice didn't shake, didn't crack, just stated fact. John stepping forward, hands up. Bro, let's talk outside, okay? Just you and me. Paul, don't call me that. He raised the gun. The first shot hit John's chest. He stumbled backward, hand clutching the altar cloth. Eyes wide, confused. He fell, blood spreading fast across his white shirt. The second shot hit Patricia's abdomen. She crumpled, bouquet scattering, white roses across red carpet. Screaming erupted. People dove under pews, ran for side exits. Chaos, pure chaos. The third shot missed, embedded in the wooden cross behind the altar. Splinters flew. Paul lowered the gun, placed it on the floor, carefully, like setting down keys. He raised his hands, palms open, no resistance. He looked at Patricia. She was still breathing, gasping, staring up at him in shock. Paul speaking, voice quiet, almost gentle. Now you'll remember me. Sirens in the distance, growing louder. Police arrived in 4 minutes. Burst through the doors, guns drawn. Officer, on the ground, now! Paul knelt, hands behind his head, didn't resist, didn't speak. Handcuffs clicking. Officer reading rights. You have the right to remain silent. Paul didn't react, didn't cry, didn't fight. As they led him out, he looked back once, saw paramedics working on Patricia, saw John's body covered with a white sheet, and for the first time in months, Paul felt present, not happy, not vindicated, just seen. Body bag, John Mitchell. Time of death, 3:41 p.m. Narrator John Mitchell, pronounced dead at the scene, 3:41 p.m., 41 years old. Patricia was rushed to Richmond Medical Center, emergency surgery, bullet pierced her intestine, narrowly missed major arteries. 6 hours later, Dr. Jin emerged. Dr. Jin. She'll survive. 2 days later, Patricia woke. First question. John? Nurse. I'm sorry. Patricia closed her eyes. Silent tears. Paul sat in a holding cell, staring at the wall. No expression. An officer told him Patricia survived. Paul's only response. Good. She should live with this. In a 180 seconds, Paul Reid destroyed 3 lives. John's ended. Patricia's shattered. And his own? It stopped being a life the moment he pulled that trigger. But here's the question that divides people. Was this murder? Or was this the final act of a man the world refused to see? And the harder question, if you spend 50 years being invisible, does anyone have the right to be surprised when you force them to look? September 2023, the trial began, and the nation couldn't agree on what justice looked like. Paul Reid faced 3 charges: first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, use of a firearm in commission of a felony. The prosecution sought life without parole. Assistant DA Raymond Carter. Paul Reid is a murderer, plain and simple. He walked into a church with a loaded gun and took a life. Carter presented evidence. The gun, the wedding invitation, his search history. How do you make someone remember you? Carter built his narrative. Paul was obsessive, possessive, unable to accept rejection. Patricia testified on day 3, still recovering, walking slowly. The courtroom went silent when she entered. Patricia. I didn't ask him to pay for my surgery. He insisted. I tried to distance myself when I realized I had feelings for John. I didn't want to hurt him, but he killed the man I loved because his ego couldn't handle rejection. The courtroom reacted. Some agreed, some didn't. Betty Nguyen standing. Defense attorney. Nguyen. This is not a story about murder. This is a story about a man who was used, discarded, and erased. Nguyen presented evidence the prosecution ignored. Bank statements showing Paul liquidated everything. 401k withdrawal. Personal loan with Gerald as co-signer. Total $4,500. She presented a timeline. April 22nd, surgery day. Late April, Patricia and John begin relationship. May through July, Paul cares for Patricia, pays bills, drives her to appointments. July 21st, wedding invitation arrives. August 19th, wedding day. Nguyen. While Paul was helping Patricia walk again, she was planning a future with his best friend. While he was paying her medical bills, they were falling in love. Paul didn't just lose a relationship, he lost his savings, his home, his future, and the two people he trusted most. Gerald testified on day 5. My son gave everything, and they took it all, his money, his trust, his future, and threw him away like garbage. I watched him disappear, and nobody helped him. Day 7. Paul took the stand. First time he'd spoken publicly since the arrest. Carter. Did you go to that church intending to kill John Mitchell? Long pause. Paul looked at the jury. Yes. Gas rippled through the room. Carter. And did you intend to kill Patricia Blake? Paul. No. I wanted her to live with what she did. The room went silent. Nguyen approaching Paul. Gentler. Paul, why didn't you just walk away? Paul looked at her, then at the jury, and said the words that would be quoted for months. Paul, because I spent 50 years walking away, from rejection, from disappointment, from people who used me, and I kept believing that if I was just good enough, kind enough, generous enough, someone would choose me. But Patricia didn't choose me. She chose my money. And John didn't choose me. He chose my life. So I stopped walking away. The courtroom was silent. Some jurors wiped their eyes. Others remained stone-faced. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. When they returned, their faces were serious. Judge, on the count of first-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. I sentence you to 40 years in state prison. Paul showed no reaction, no surprise. Just acceptance. As officers led him away, Gerald stood, mouthed the words, I love you, son. Paul nodded once and disappeared. The verdict made national headlines. Church shooter sentenced to 40 years. Was Paul Reid a victim or a murderer? The public remained divided. Some called him a murderer. Some called him a victim. Most admitted it was both. Patricia moved out of Richmond, deleted all social media, lives under a different name. In one interview, she said, Patricia, I think about John every day, and I think about Paul. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. Gerald still pays Paul's loan. Will be until he's 78, visits his son every month, tells reporters, my son is not a monster. He's a man who broke, and society helped break him. A GoFundMe appeared. Help Gerald Reid, father of Paul Reid, raised $147,000 in 3 weeks, paid off the loan completely. Justice was served. A man was convicted. A life was taken. Another was destroyed. But justice doesn't answer the questions that keep people awake at night. Did Paul Reid deserve what happened to him before he killed John? Did Patricia and John owe him anything? And the question nobody wants to answer honestly, if you were Paul, if you gave everything and got nothing, if the two people you trusted most betrayed you at the same time, what would you have done? Thank you for watching to the end and see you in our next episode of Compass True Crime Stories. Stay safe.